Hello and welcome to the Soul Aligned Self Care Podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. And I am also very excited to be here today.
Well, I just want to get right into it because I have so many questions for you today. Hopefully, I can get to them all. But to start off, could you tell the listeners about your relationship with plants? And maybe you can give me an idea of when you felt that deeper connection and you knew you were going to be spending most of your time working in that field.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my relationship with plants and nature generally definitely began when I was a child. I grew up in nature. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, very, very much in the wild. I was raised on a farm, and, we could barely see on the horizon our nearest neighbor. And I spent, all my time outdoors and really, really, really cultivated a relationship with the natural world at that point. I also had parents who worked in medicine and health. My dad was an anesthesiologist, and my mom essentially is a functional healthcare practitioner still. And so I was exposed to a lot of concepts of nutrition, nature, the body, medication, surgery, all these things from a very young age. But I was never intent on making that my career. I thought, this is interesting. This is a big part of my life, my personal life, but I want to move to New York City and work in fashion. I want nothing to do with dirt. I want nothing to do with, healthcare, frankly. So I did that. But, from the time I was very young, I was, on a personal note, I was eating very, very healthy food. I was using vitamins and supplements and herbs. I was fascinated with the human relationship with nature. I had a very kind of philosophical or spiritual interest in that. And I was constantly studying, essentially, again, from the time I was a kid, concepts of medicine, concepts of spirituality, the world's healing traditions, everything I could get my hands on, from Ayurveda, yoga, traditional Chinese medicine, paganism, mysticism, psychology, physics, philosophy, whatever. I was just in my world on the side. And long story short, I worked in fashion, and there came a point where I realized that I had achieved the dreams that I had for my career in fashion, and that wasn't going to be my whole life, which surprised me because I thought it was going to be my whole life. And when that sensation occurred, I sort of opened my perspective again to what else I might do with my future. And, at that point, I was, still just personally practicing very, very heavily in all of the things that I sort of mentioned. I was raw vegan. I was sober. I had been to Peru and, experienced ayahuasca and San Pedro. And this is over a decade ago. And the wellness industry was just beginning to be a thing. So it was this sort of natural progression where I kind of looked, off to my right or wherever it was, and saw this industry beginning to develop. And everybody else was looking at me and they're like, oh, that's what you're doing. All of a sudden there was context for the sort of strange things that I was eating, or my tea that I was drinking, or all these, otherwise very weird to a lot of people things that I did, So I decided to quit fashion and quit my full-time work and begin working in wellness. And at that point, I started working as a health coach, essentially. I never liked that term, but I didn't know how to describe what else I did. I was creating products. They were herbal products. People were asking me to coach them on their health. So I was seeing clients. I was writing a lot. And at that point, I re-encountered herbalism, and I realized herbalism encompasses all of these sort of otherwise seemingly separate studies that I'd done. It's about nutrition. It's about plants as medicine. It's about our relationship with nature. It's about community and fitness and mental health and everything. And I realized, oh, this is it. It was like a light bulb moment. I was like, this is the philosophy. This is the lifestyle. This is the through line that connects everything that I'm so interested in, and everything that, there are so many specialists in wellness. But I really, really do see herbalism as this holistic kind of umbrella under which there are so many individual disciplines that we often don't realize are herbalism. So anyway, at that point, I began studying herbalism again and much more deeply, and using the title herbalist. And then I went on to get my certification with the American Herbalist Guild. So in short, I've always had a relationship with plants, but somewhere around, 10 or 12 years ago, I saw it again and realized what it really was. And that was the point that I became committed to becoming an herbalist.
Well, there was so many aspects of that I just love. And I can relate to like all of them. So I think we should be like soul friends, kind of.
All right, let's do it. We already are in that case.
Yeah. So, but when I think of my audience, I think, yeah, there's probably a bunch of people listening right now who are like, yes, like, yeah, all those things. And then there's a few who are like, what is she talking about? And you said like,
Sure.
like weird and stuff like that. Some people think that I might be weird myself, and because I'm into like all those same types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question would be, what would you like the audience, because this is a self-care podcast, and I want to start getting into talking about herbalism a little more, but what would you like them to take away today? And also, like, on another side of that question, what do you think most people get wrong when they're trying to understand herbalism or using herbalism in their everyday lives?
Yeah. I would love people, first of all, in terms of the takeaway, I would love people to know that herbalism is probably what you've been looking for and not realized, that it was what you were looking for. Herbalism is about optimizing our health and our entire lives naturally. It is not just plants as medicine. It is really an option for any aspect of our life that we're trying to improve, life or health, inclusive, that we're trying to improve from, naturally. That's herbalism. And that's what I would like people to know. The other thing that I like to say, which is the first line in my book, Naturally, we are all herbalists. Whether we know it or not, we're probably practicing herbalism already. And if we're not, we are one half of a step away from doing so. If we have coffee or tea, if we use essential oils or incense, if we cook with spices, any of these things, if we bathe with plants, any of this is herbalism. So it doesn't require going, to school. It doesn't require getting an official education. It can be very, very, very easy to access. So we are all herbalists, and we have all been herbalists as long as our species has existed. Herbalism used to be a way of life, and I really, really, really hope, and my intention with this book is to show how natural it is. Anytime I introduce people to herbalism, I said this yesterday, I have never introduced somebody to herbalism and had them understand it and say, no, that's not for me. Everyone says, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh, I get it. Oh, of course. That's what I've been doing, or that's what my grandma was doing, or my aunt or my uncle, or that sounds right. That's what I need to do. That's what I want to do. It is so natural for us. So those are some takeaways. And in terms of misconceptions, I touched on a couple, but I think common misconceptions about herbalism include, the idea that it is outdated, that it is something kind of fringe or esoteric or irrelevant for modern life. that it's not effective, that it's not been proven by science, and that it's not safe. And all of those I really I address in the book, and I address on a regular basis because they're understandable, but they're misconceptions. Herbalism is so relevant for modern life. It's never been more relevant. It's what we really, really, really do need now, and we need more of in the future. There's tons of science that supports the efficacy of all these plants. There's also thousands of years of use and practice. People around the world, 80% of the world's population uses herbalism as a primary or supplemental form of healthcare today. And it is generally very, very safe. It's generally much more safe than the medications that we consider to be very safe over the counter or prescription. So again, there's much more detail to all of those points. But I really like to try to clarify those because this is a friendly, safe, natural option for improving our health.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well said. I think that once people start understanding exactly what herbalism is, they understand it better when someone explains it to them exactly how you explained it. Would you
Yeah.
say, well, you mentioned that some people are already practicing herbalism. They're already doing
Yeah.
these things in their life. And so besides coffee and tea, what are some of the other ways that people do this, not even realizing it? And also how can somebody start using herbs in their life and forming these relationships with these plants
Hmm.
as like a newbie, just getting, what are some ways that they could infuse this into their life for their health?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of what I mentioned were some of the most common examples. When we're eating a plant, it doesn't have to be entirely plant-based, but when we're eating, plant-based foods, that's an example of herbalism. When we're eating healthy foods, that's an example of herbalism. Any herbalist will start with nutrition and sleep and movement and all of these foundational pillars of health when recommending something to a client. Any kind of engagement that we have with the natural world and then feel better as a result, that's herbalism. It may be getting sunlight on our face first thing in the morning. It may be seeing dark, in the evening. It may be going out and touching grass. It doesn't require us to grow our own herbs or make our own tinctures or, do anything complicated, and I really I really pulled that all the way through the book because I like to make sure people know that you don't have to be any kind of professional to work with this. So, and one of the most common ways that people begin with herbalism is to start drinking more tea and explore the world of herbs in tea form. And that can be ordering it from the coffee shop where you normally get a coffee or a matcha. That can be buying tea at the grocery store, and just making a ritual out of it. Maybe paying more attention to what the ingredients are in that tea. And then maybe we go to, the farmer's market or a health food store or an herb shop and pick out our own herbs or ask them what they think would be great for sleep. And then we start making that blend and we feel how we feel and we sort of see, oh, look, there was lemon balm in that tea that I bought at the coffee shop. There's lemon balm in this sleep blend. What's lemon balm about? Maybe I want a lemon balm tincture. Maybe I want to find lemon balm at the farmer's market and see what it looks like in whole plant form. Maybe I want, an essential oil or something like that. So just one tiny step at a time. But with all changes, I always recommend that people just take one step and stick with that. Make it a habit and don't add anything new until that step has been integrated. Learn one plant at a time or one blend at a time. And if somebody doesn't like tea, you can use capsules. We don't even have to be brewing tea. You can buy some great herbal blend, take it in the morning with your probiotics or your multivitamin, and that is your first step, to practicing herbalism. It can be really, really simple. Or, pick up a book and learn a little bit
Yes,
more.
exactly.
You'll find what resonates. Yeah.
So, I find that when I actually work with the plants, I understand them better. So like when I grow them and harvest them and dry them
Mhm.
sometimes and use them that way. I create these relationships where I understand the plant better. Um, most of the plants that I grow are for stress and
Mhm.
anxiety and those types. So it's like my garden is, and it wasn't like intentional. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to plant this herb garden. I was like, oh, I like that. Let me grow that. That's how it
Mhm.
happened. So it was like lemon balm, lavender, holy
Mm.
basil, chamomile.
Mm.
I have some rosemary in my garden. I have a lot of different things and I've made teas out of them and I love doing that. And I think that when I pick the flowers, I just feel like I have a closer relationship with them, and it means so much more to me. Talking about rituals, when I have that
Yeah.
tea, and I have that tea all winter that I grew myself, I think that it just seems so much more powerful. But
Yeah.
talking about like stress and anxiety and overwhelm, the world is very heavy right now. And I feel like
Mhm.
there's a lot of people right now that could use, some remedies for stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. So, what are some of the herbs that we can use to help us with those things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and firstly, I just have to say I love that you grow your own herbs, and that is the absolute best way to cultivate a relationship with these plants, to see them in live form or bring them to
Mhm.
life. How beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of stress and anxiety, so I in naturally actually split those out into two separate chapters because I think in my work I've found it to be very important to help people understand the difference between stress, anxiety, and busyness.
Mm.
And one of the beautiful things about herbalism is it's very, very personalized and it's very specific. So if we are feeling stress, we can ask ourselves even more questions about that stress before we treat it. How does it feel? How is it showing up in my body? How is it affecting my life? Because the way I experience stress is going to be so different from the way you experience stress. We're going to need different supports for that, right? And in herbalism, there are two categories of herbs that are particularly well suited to treat stress and/or anxiety. So, one is nervines, many of which you mentioned.
Mhm.
Nervine herbs are herbs that support the health of the nervous system. They tend to be gently calming, or they range all the way to being sedative. And those provide very specific relief and can be kind of a light touch like lavender, lemon balm, or they can be a heavier sedative for sleep or treating panic attacks, for example. And that would be something like hops, valerian, California poppy. And so again, I mentioned that they're specific, and that's an important point because most herbs are specific. They have a specific function in the body. They're a nervine, they create relaxation or they heal the nerves. They're an antidepressant, they lift the mood, like St. John's wort or rhodiola. But the next category of herbs that's very helpful for stress is non-specific by definition, and that is adaptogens. And adaptogenic herbs work in a general way in the body to help improve our resilience. So we um, respond better to stressors when they occur, and then we recover more quickly on the other side. They tend to work through the HPA axis in the brain, which is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And again, they're non-specific, so they're generalized in their action and they're normalizing. So they're not a sedative. They're not, acutely calming. They are making us more resilient overall. And they tend to work over time, 4 to 6 weeks really, of daily use to reach full efficacy. Examples of adaptogens would be ashwagandha, ginseng, rhodiola, cordyceps, licorice, plants like that. There are not a lot of herbs that are adaptogens, and that term is very popular right now. I'm sure
Mhm.
we've
Yeah.
all heard it. But it has a very specific definition and a very specific set of plants that fit within it. So when treating stress and anxiety, it could be very beneficial to take an adaptogenic blend on a daily basis to build that foundational resilience, and then use the nervines as needed to help calm the nervous system before or after a stressful meeting, for example, or before bed, for example, these
Hmm.
sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So a question that I have about the adaptogen. So, it builds up until you get like full efficacy, right? So
Mhm.
you said 4 to 6 weeks, I think you said.
Typically,
Uh,
yeah.
okay. Is it okay to like continuously take them, or is there a certain point where you should give your body a rest in between,
Yeah.
or is it okay to keep going with them?
Yeah, great question. Very common question. There's a lot of talk about cycling right now. So generally, we don't need to give our body a rest from herbs. If we're taking something really, really strong, maybe we're doing a cleanse or we're sick and we're taking something really potent, like, I don't know, oregano oil. That's not even that potent, but it's an example of a pretty potent plant. Those we don't need to take, all the time. But for example, if we're using an adaptogenic blend that contains ashwagandha, for example, we can use that as long as we want. There's no advice to cycle herbs, meaning there's no advice in the herbal community. It's something that's come a little bit more on the outside,
Hmm.
to cycle herbs. However, I believe that it's always a good idea for us to take a break from things and check in. If we are drinking coffee every day for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is, our
Forever.
whole
Yeah.
lives, maybe, we take a break. Or, for example, we're taking a vitamin or a supplement, or gosh, if we're eating the same foods, we should definitely, switch those around. That's just good advice in general. But, my favorite response to that comes from one of my teachers, David Winston. And he said, we know we need to eat vegetables to become more healthy, right? So we eat vegetables, maybe we lose a little weight, we feel better, and we're like healthier now. Do we stop eating vegetables?
Yeah. That's a good
No.
I love that response. That's a
Right?
perfect way to say it so
Yeah. To
everybody can
keep,
understand that.
yeah, keep using the herbs. But, so it's like sometimes, we might use them long enough that our nervous systems are rehabilitated to the point that we don't need them. And so what I would say is, okay, fine, stop taking the adaptogenic blend, but like find some other herbs to take because they're so beneficial. Like if we can take them, we should.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your book. Tell me a little bit
Hmm.
about your book, who the book is for, and what we can find inside of there.
Yeah, definitely. So my book is Naturally, The Herbalist Guide to Health and Transformation. And I put everything in that book, everything I have, everything I know, everything I've learned. It is for anyone who is interested in natural health. You don't have to be interested in herbalism specifically. You can be interested in herbalism specifically. It includes everything you need to know to understand herbalism well, to understand natural health well, to begin practicing. There are case studies from not all of my, sorry, from some of my clients. So you get to see the very specific formulas that I gave people and how I coached people to better health. And each chapter of the book is dedicated to a category of herbs because that's a very easy way to understand herbalism. So there's a chapter on nervines and the nervous system. So you learn about the nervous system, you learn about nervine plants, you learn how to use them, and you understand all the other ways as well that we can have better nervous system health. There's a chapter on stress, detoxification, energy, retreating, pleasure and aphrodisiacs, sleep, pain. And the last chapter is on transformation and just these sort of bigger life changes that are possible with nature, with herbalism. I also have recipes in the back, and I have a very useful herb use table that allows people to just kind of pop in and say, okay, lemon balm, what's the best form? How much should I take? And are there any special notes to know about
Mhm.
it? Ashwagandha. So you can quick reference like, oh, and ashwagandha goes well with rhodiola and cordyceps. Okay, great. So that table to me is very valuable. I've never seen anything like that in the herbal world, and I think it needed to exist. So it's in there. And the book is a combination of poetry, science, philosophy, practical, advice, and really, really, it's comprehensive. It's really one for ever.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to dive in. I'm waiting for it to come right now.
Yeah.
I live on the top of a mountain, and I don't know.
Beautiful.
It's like they take forever to deliver up here, like I'm in some other planet or something. Like everybody gets next day delivery. I get like, okay, it'll be there in 7 to 10 days. So
Sometime eventually. Yeah, that's
yeah,
like in Costa Rica, I actually don't have an address. My mom is like, wait, what? How do I send you a birthday card? I said, I don't know.
that's
There aren't
so
addresses here.
that's kind of nice in some ways, I could say.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So you have two home bases. One
Mm-hmm.
one is in New York City, and
Mm-hmm.
experience living in New York City, and one is in Costa Rica. Two
Yeah.
completely different experiences. Now, my question is, when in New York City, and to all the people who live in cities all over the place,
Yeah.
how did you, and what would you recommend to other people to connect with nature? Because I feel like you have to be a little more intentional about it when you're living in a place like New York. Now, I'm aware there's a lot of parks in New York, but like what are some of the ways that you did this for yourself when you're in New York City?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, I can't count the number of times that I've been asked why in the world I live in New York City as an herbalist or a plant person. They're like, what are you doing here? But obviously I came here for different reasons. So, that said, I have always found ways to remain connected with the natural world here. And I was actually just writing about this topic yesterday, and some of the examples that I was listing for, how to do so include filling our home with plants. It can be fresh plants, it can be dried plants, it can be plants as art, it can be essential oils, it can be incense, it can be any kind of botanical, element. I mean, looking around my desk and I'm like, my hand lotion is made from plants, my perfume
Mhm.
is made from plants. I have essential oil here, I have incense here. I always look out my window and I can see one tree. It's not great. It's one, but it's still green. And, I do that often. We can learn to identify some of the plants that grow in the area locally. We can walk down the sidewalk and there's a weed growing through the sidewalk, but we realize that weed is mugwort, and mugwort is medicinal.
Mhm.
It's plantain, it's chicory, it's, one of these things. There are communities, if we're interested in that, there are always communities of other plant people. So we can find those, maybe see if there's a local forager or a health food store or an herb shop or a farmer's market where there are people who are urbanites, but who are still interested in the plant world. We can cook with plants. We can be making tea, we can be infusing them into our meals. And often we're already doing that, but we may not realize it. And
Mhm.
so just that act of realizing, like, oh, I mean, maybe like if you like basil or cilantro or parsley or thyme or oregano or any of these things, and you already cook with it, maybe take a moment and learn about the benefits of that plant. And then the next time you use it in your food, you'll realize that you're ingesting something functional and medicinal. You know, Blueberries are considered an herb. There's so there's so many that are already in our diet. And then I think, once we begin to just start to see, I think often it's a matter of just seeing what's already there in terms of plants that surround us. That kind of opens our eyes and we start to realize how much more we could surround ourselves with the natural world. I mean, coming from fashion, even our clothes can be made from botanical material, um, if we choose them intentionally, that sort of thing, plant dyed or, hemp fabrics or these different things.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of options. And then, yes, of course, I mean, get outside at every possible opportunity.
Yeah.
I take a lot of walks. I'm often discouraged by the lack of nature here, but that doesn't stop me from running and cycling and walking and sitting in a park and just trying to look up instead of down on a regular basis.
That's a good point. Look up instead of down.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional sometimes. Now let's
Yeah.
go down south and go down to Costa Rica and tell me about, I'm not sure how long you've been doing that, but tell me about some of the beautiful things that you've learned and experienced and have got to work with like hands-on that maybe you haven't experienced in the Pacific Northwest or the Northeast in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you ask me that, and I almost feel tearful because it's been such a beautiful, beautiful home for
Well,
me
you
and
just,
my
your face, your whole body just lit up, by the way, when I asked you that
exactly.
question.
Yeah. It's very, very moving. I mean, I've traveled a lot, and I didn't travel to Costa Rica because I had an idea of what it was like that was I thought it was not something I was looking for. And long story short, I fell in love with that place like it was a person. It was
Hmm.
so, so, so thorough, and it changed my life. And it is the right place for me, at least for right now. And I mean, in that environment, the amount of things that I've learned in the last year and a half or 2 years is astounding. I mean, I'm speechless now trying to, I'm like, this is my next book because it's
I
just
was
been
just going to
profound.
say that.
It is. It's been profound, and I think that happens when people find their place or they find their people, you just, it's like, it can change overnight.
Hmm.
And, I'll try to summarize it. I'm, bathed in nature there all day, every day, barefoot in the ocean. I'm surfing. I'm on the beach. I'm in the jungle. I'm planting trees. I'm eating the most fresh, local food all the time. Fish that was caught that day, tropical fruit, whatever. It's a beautiful thing. And there's also a lot in the community there that I appreciate. There are a lot of philosophies about health. I mean, it's a blue zone. So you're around
Hmm.
people who've grown up with generations of people who have lived, the longest of anyone in the world. And their philosophy about health and their philosophy about life and their philosophy about work and pleasure and balance and play and all these different things, it's very, very different than what we have in the US. So I'm just fascinated to sit and absorb the locals' perspective on life. There's a lot there that I've learned, yeah, and then the contrast of that to New York has been, I mean, it's obvious, but it's also been really, really educational because it removed me so thoroughly from this environment that it really gave me the opportunity to reflect back on the life that I have here and see it in a different way. And even though I'd traveled and gained some, degree of perspective, I think the gift of being fully removed from your life and being able to see it, fully from the outside and then sort of choose what aspects of it you want to continue. I mean, it's a gift. So that's been really, really edifying. It's been
Yeah.
challenging, but it's been, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's on, Costa Rica is definitely on my travel list, and I've been wanting to go there for a long time. And
yeah.
you just like increase that a little bit. So I'm excited. I'm
Lovely.
excited for your next book. I
No,
haven't
thank
even
you.
read this one yet. I can't wait to read it, and I'm excited for the next one. Um, I I think that you said it very beautifully, and I like how you mentioned the blue zones and
Yeah.
community because that is a big part of our health. And
Hmm.
for people who aren't familiar with the blue zones, it's all these different places all over the world where people live into like their hundreds and where
Yeah.
they're not just alive, but they're living healthy,
Yeah.
functional, beautiful lives.
Yeah.
And what I like about the blue zones is that these areas are so different. They're eating
Mm.
food, but there are these common things. So if you're interested in that, just look it up. It's very easy to find. But I love how you mentioned that because community is a big part of that. And there is community in New York City. I've seen beautiful communities in New York City. And so that would be definitely a common denominator for health if you're
Yeah.
looking to support your health. Now, I want to like totally switch the subject right now.
Okay.
There's a lot of women that listen to the podcast that are middle-aged women who are experiencing perimenopause and menopause, including myself.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had some maybe wonderful advice how women could support their systems going into this. So not just like when they get into it and they're in the thick of it and they're just like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" But, kind of before they get there to support themselves on that path.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of my community as well, so I definitely understand. Um, the I'll share some of the greatest herbs for women and a couple of other pieces of advice that I've found to be really effective and always recommend. The first one sounds a bit basic, but I promise it's worthwhile. And that is fiber.
Mm.
So the more fiber we can eat, I know I've been talking about fiber forever. People are like, this is so boring, but it's really, really, I mean, this is life changing. And that's like, this is the glucose goddess, and bless her, her
Yes.
message is great, but it's like stable blood sugar is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we all feel so much better when we have stable blood sugar. And fiber is a huge aspect of that. Protein and fat, of course, are also important, but most people are not eating enough fiber. And when we do that, yes, it stabilizes blood sugar, but it also improves our digestion and motility, our elimination. And the benefit of that is it's improving our detoxification processes. And the benefit of that is that our detoxification process is what's balancing out our hormones. So fiber equals better lots of things. But I would say that's actually recommendation number one in general for most people, but especially for supporting hormone balance. In addition, of course, to all the other sort of health pillars, eating well, getting enough sleep, balancing stress, these kinds of things. Along the same lines, I recommend milk thistle, which is a liver supportive herb. And I take that one every single day, even though I don't drink alcohol. And I recommend it to most people, because especially women of this age. Again, because the liver is so important in detoxifying our hormones and helping with that balance. So it's often overlooked. We're thinking about, what's an herb I can take to adjust my estrogen level or my progesterone level or to help me with this symptom that I have of imbalanced hormones. But the more we can think at the root cause level, the better. And the liver is really important for hormone balance. So milk thistle as well. Now, there are a few herbs that are really helpful for women of all ages, but especially women who are going through hormonal changes. So it can be puberty, it can be getting on or off of birth control, and it can be menopause, menopause, post, any kind of transition, even after birth, and these sorts of things. And those herbs are Vitex. So
Hmm.
these are usually in a blend together.
Okay.
Vitex, otherwise known as chaste tree berry,
Okay.
is a beautiful herb that helps to regulate hormones by supporting the pituitary gland and levels of LH. It's really, really helpful for anyone with irregular cycles or PMS symptoms. Also, symptoms of estrogen dominance, mood swings, breast tenderness, irregular periods, like I mentioned, and during perimenopause. Black cohosh,
Hmm.
classic. These two are often together in formulas, and it's really recommended to find a blend that contains multiple of these herbs. Black cohosh helps to modulate estrogen levels, really helpful for hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, vasomotor symptoms. So that's like hot flashes, irritability, insomnia. Um,
That sounds like the magic pill there.
it's great. Those two are really, really good. I take them both. I've taken the Vitex for years. Vitex is one that, I can't, any woman I've ever given it to has come back and said, wow, wow, thank you. Not thank me. Thank you, the Vitex. It's really incredible.
Hmm.
Um, Dong Quai is another classic. You often find, again, this is often a blend, more of a TCM herb used to help balance hormones, regulate periods, treat fatigue. Um, I would say, and then it kind of depends. So, for example, if somebody's having trouble sleeping, we might work with some of the sedative herbs or maybe ashwagandha to help balance cortisol levels. Or if somebody's having a low mood, then maybe we
Mm-hmm.
include St. John's wort or rhodiola. Rhodiola can be really helpful for improving mood, but also balancing or improving our resilience to stress. It's kind of an antidepressant herb that is also an adaptogen.
Mm-hmm.
Another that I really like is shatavari, and shatavari is great for dryness. So that's such a
Okay.
common experience
Mm-hmm.
during menopause. Shatavari helps to improve like mucous membranes, sort of mucus production. It's not going to make you feel sort of mucusy, but it improves like
Mm-hmm.
hydration in dry areas. Great for libido, hormone fluctuations in general. Red clover is often used, not so much during menopause, but a bit more prior. Red clover is a really nice nutritive herb for women in general.
Mm-hmm.
Contains phytoestrogens, which sounds like plant estrogens. It's not actually estrogen, but it can bind to some of the same receptor sites and help to normalize hormone balance overall. Let me think if there's anything else.
Well, before
Licorice is, yeah, go ahead.
we'll go back to licorice, but
Yeah.
you said a TCM herb. I just want you to like clarify to people what you meant by that.
Yes, of course. So, we were talking about Dong
Don
Quai
Quai.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
I said TCM. So that's traditional Chinese medicine. And, the beauty of herbalism today is that I, for example, as an herbalist, can work with herbs from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
I can use Chinese or, quote unquote Chinese herbs because they might not even come from China anymore, but like originally used in traditional Chinese medicine. I can use Chinese herbs. I can use herbs from Ayurveda. I can use Western herbs. I can use Indian herbs. I can use African herbs. I can use whatever I want. Um, and but I like to sort of call that out because, for example, traditional Chinese medicine is one of those specialties, if you will, beneath the global umbrella of herbalism. So TCM is herbalism. It's just
Mm-hmm.
an art and a science that's one of the oldest in herbalism that works exclusively with Chinese herbs or herbs that historically have been used by indigenous, Chinese people. And you have the same with Ayurveda, for example. And Ayurveda
Mm-hmm.
and TCM also have these other concepts that we don't necessarily work with in Western medicine or Western herbalism. We can as well. So, I'm sure your readers are familiar with Ayurveda and doshas. We
Mm-hmm.
have
Yeah.
these different doshas and there's yoga and there's all these different things. Whereas in traditional Chinese medicine, there are concepts of yin and yang and different energies and meridians, and they have different
Mm-hmm.
ideas about organs in the body. So it's a beautiful time because we have access to all these different philosophies and specialties. But some people also choose to work exclusively in that, division, if you will.
And yes, thank you for clarifying that. Now I
Mm-hmm.
interrupted you in the middle of licorice, so let's go back to licorice.
Licorice is such a great herb. A lot of people don't love licorice because they either don't like the flavor of it or it can be a bit too energizing. But it's really, 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 it's one of the most common herbs in herbalism, I think. You see it in so many formulas, definitely in traditional Chinese medicine formulas, also Western. And that is because it has a few different functions. So one function is it's included in blends often because it acts a little bit like a catalyst or a bioenhancer, which is something that improves the absorbability or the function, if you will, of the rest of the herbs in that formula. So licorice will be this kind of, it's like you have your whole herbal formula and then you add licorice and the whole thing kind of lights up. It's like it creates synergy. It makes it work better. It's kind of like when you have turmeric and you add black pepper,
Okay.
you're like, ding, now we have synergy. Now the curcumin is absorbable. Now the thing works better. So licorice is often used that way in formulas. It's also an adaptogen. It helps to, I guess the way to describe it is it helps to sort of, I like to say that it makes our cortisol usage more effective. So it's like we produce cortisol and then licorice allows us to sort of use it longer. It's a really interesting action. So yeah, it can be helpful for energy. But again, some people maybe with heart issues or these sorts of things, it can be not ideal for them. There's also licorice that is deglycerized, which means it has the kind of the active compound removed. And then it just works as a great gut health, kind of a, slippery, slimy, smooth gut health herb. But licorice is great for women, who are going through menopause or perimenopause, and you'll often see it in a blend with Vitex, Black Cohosh, Dong Quai, Shatavari, something like that. So
Interesting. I did not know that licorice was an adaptogen. I didn't know that. I like licorice sometimes. So I'm not a big fan of like that licorice flavor, like
yeah,
eating like straight black licorice or a
yeah.
black jelly bean. I get so pissed off if I get a black one. But like when you have licorice in a tea or something like that, I kind of like it because it's way more milder and it
Yeah.
kind of adds a sweetness. But
Hmm.
I never like look to it as like beneficial in any way. So
Yeah. Very
so
effective.
that's cool. That's really cool
Yeah.
to learn. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of thank you. That was a lot of helpful for like very selfishly for myself, but like
With pleasure.
also for the audience. Now,
Yeah.
another, I guess, good question, and you probably hear this a lot. You're probably bored of this question, but we're going into the winter season and we have cold and flu and all those things. What are some of the things that we could, start adding into our lifestyle right now to help us to help our immune system, to support our immune system, build it up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my favorites are very easy to work with. Garlic and ginger.
Oh,
Really, yeah,
yeah, garlic.
really effective, right?
Yeah.
Um, I came home on a red eye a couple days ago and I caught a cold on the plane. And I mean, sleeping for 0 hours definitely didn't help. And I ate so much garlic the following day and a half, and the cold was gone in 2 days, I think, something like maybe less. Very, very quick. Garlic is great preventatively. It's like one of those things I just recommend people work in. Put it in salad dressings, cook with it, like I put it in guacamole when I'm in Costa Rica. Just as like the avocado was like a vehicle for me to, ingest more garlic, but it's really, really effective for the entire cold and flu season. Ginger as well. Functional mushrooms are an excellent immune herb. So, and I recommend a blend when you're working with functional mushrooms. Just try to find a blend that has 7 to 11 mushrooms in it: shiitake, maitake, reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane, tremella. There's so many, but a blend is nice. It's just sort of a greedy way to get a lot of mushrooms.
Yeah.
And mushrooms help to regulate the function of the immune system. So it's again, kind of like adaptogens. They have a normalizing action. So they ensure that the immune system is functioning well, but not overreacting. And that can be important, especially in this day and age when we have so many autoimmune conditions where people's immune systems are overactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that as a blend. I mean, vitamin D, not an herb, but that's very
Mm-hmm.
important for immunity. Um, and then if we're actually sick, we can use things like echinacea, elderberry, oregano. Oregano is very strong. So I was
Mhm.
definitely, doing all of that at the same time as well for my little cold. Elderberry is great preventatively as well. Some of those herbs like echinacea, we can just save until we are sick and use them to help get over it. But
Mhm.
yeah, those are and my favorite, which people don't love, but eat as little sugar as possible. Like none,
Yes,
if
I
possible.
know.
Yeah.
Sugar is so bad for us, but it's so delicious
Yeah.
and so
Especially when
addictive.
we're sick or if we're on the
Mm.
verge, it can make a huge difference.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people always get frustrated when I say that.
It's such a bummer, but you could once you like detox yourself from sugar, which is really difficult,
Yeah.
um, things that wouldn't normally be sweet start tasting sweet. And
Exactly.
you'd be surprised, like a lemon could be sweet and a lime,
Yes.
especially a lime can be very sweet actually. And that's what I noticed at least. But I am like a sugar whore. Like I just like I go back into it and then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right, Tina, calm down. Like you gotta stop. And then I'll go completely off of it. And then I'm like, oh, this is so much better. And then, I don't know. You have something that's just like lights your brain up and then you're like, okay, here we go again.
Well, that's exactly what
But
it's doing. It's lighting your brains up.
yeah.
It has a drug action, and there are so many,
Hmm.
options today that are designed to do that,
Hmm.
But yeah, if we're sick, if we can abstain, it's really, really helpful. Stay really warm, lots of spicy foods
Hmm.
and scarves and things. I like to try to sweat it out, if possible.
Well, thank you so much. I want to respect your
Yeah.
time, but
Mm.
before we get going, I always ask people to, if you feel comfortable,
Yeah.
to share something with the listeners about yourself that has nothing to do with this part of your life. Maybe something, a hobby, or it's just something about you that maybe you haven't shared before.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. What can I share? I feel like people know so much about me.
I know, right? It's so true.
Well, I mean, this is top of mind. And my hypnotherapist friend always says first thought, best thought. So we'll
Hmm.
go with this. I just got back from 3 weeks in Brazil. And I'd never been to Brazil before. I had a friend who was traveling through South America, and they were like, come. It was my birthday. I managed to get away in the middle of book promotion, which was crazy, but so helpful. My nervous system really needed it. And it was such a beautiful trip. And I learned something that I've learned in Costa Rica is they have a very different relationship to time. And it's very common for Costa Ricans to not think very far ahead. They live in the present moment. So they're not
Nice.
thinking about tomorrow even. And of
Hmm.
course, for me, I'm thinking for all of us, we're thinking months in advance, years in advance sometimes. So I went on this trip with no plans other than that I would be there for 3 weeks and that we would be traveling around.
Hmm.
Um, and it all worked out really well. And it was the first time I'd ever traveled in such a spontaneous way before. And I found that to be most of the time very fun. And again, very like, I love to learn things, right? So I was like learning about my relationship. So like, we're going to plan where we're going tomorrow, like tonight.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I loved that. So ended up seeing Sao Paulo, Rio, Salvador area, hiking in Chapada, Diamantina, lots of traveling around, and yeah, just kind of going with the flow. I only took a backpack. I can't remember the last time I traveled
Oh,
with a
nice.
backpack. I was like, wait, am I really doing this again? But I did. And it was wonderful. So I share all of that, and maybe the teacher in me wants to just offer like, the benefit of us doing new things, doing things that are uncomfortable, doing things that feel, just unfamiliar, is so great for self-awareness and growing ourselves. We
Hmm.
learn more about ourselves and about the world, and then more opportunities open up to us in the future because we realize, we're capable of being different. So that's my share.
I love that. That's beautiful. It's very true. Like,
Yeah.
a quick story for you. When I
Yeah.
first started doing the podcast, I was terrified to have guests on because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I just really jumped
Mm.
into it, and I was afraid that I would look unprofessional, and I put it off for a really, really long time. And then I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I have to do this," and I can't tell you the reward on the other side of that. Been
Mm.
doing it for a couple years now, and I'm like, I can't like, the coolest people I get to meet and talk to,
Yeah.
it's been amazing. So, yeah, that little bit of discomfort is so worth it when you see what's on the other side, the gifts that you get when you grow,
Yeah.
and just beautiful. I love that, and also I love what you said about living in the present moment. It's so important. It's so difficult for us to do, especially when we're kinda, like, programmed not to do that, so it's going against
Yes,
the
we
grid a
are.
little bit.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, where
Yeah.
can people find you? Where do you hang out? Where can they connect with you?
They can find me on the internet. I can be
Mhm.
otherwise difficult to find in the real world, but
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. I don't want people hunting you down.
my website is RachelleRobinett.com, and
Mhm.
everything is there. My book is there. Our newsletter is there. That's a great place for people to sign up for a newsletter that is full of herbalism information and many other things. And I am also on Instagram at Rachelle Robinett.
Great. I'll put all of this stuff in the show notes. I just signed up for your newsletter today, so
Thank
I'm
you.
excited about that. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom. It's been so nice chatting with you, and I would love to have you on again when you write that next book, and
Thank
we
you.
could have a conversation about Costa Rica. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new one. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps get the show in front of more people who might need this type of support. And if you're ready to take your everyday self-care even deeper, come join us inside the Soul Aligned Life Patreon. Every week, you'll get new self-care practices and tools to help reduce stress and overwhelm. Plus, we do a monthly reset to keep you aligned and supported always. You'll find the link in the show notes, and I'd love to see you there. Until next time, be sure to take good care of yourself. Love you. Bye.